instant messaging. What's the go.
Well, students can exchange their homework. Those students who were absent, perhaps they can exchange their homework or what they've done in the class.
She means to ask how does it help in classroom activities?
Academics in teaching and something besides
Helps in the list out
socializing.
work or any
It helps in
During
other ways
class.
also. Like our children, they went for 23rd March activity.
Yes.
There was in Karachi, and our children went there, and they used this and they gave it to all the friends which were around in the teachers.
Yeah.
They gave their feedback with the pictures
There and then
Yes.
there and then they gave it, and that was
My students went to another branch for economic discussion, and they had queries there. They needed my help in that regard. So they asked me over the SMS, what do we do about this? That's the next presentation.
So one instance of that is SMS on the mobile. Another instance is, of course, using chat features like Google Talk or Yahoo Messenger and those. The way I've used it is particularly when I said group work and so forth for my students who live, in different sort of paths, and to enable them to continue to work with each other outside class, they find it quite helpful to communicate. But also for me, myself, for my own students, when I'm supervising work and stuff, very often that I get at some time for my student, they're just working on something, have a question, they just ask it me over the instant messenger, I reply back whilst they're doing it, and they're able to just continue in their work and so forth. So it's obviously got to be framed well, but in terms of group work activities, if you're a language educator, for example, which I am, by background, and you live in the UK, you'll find it very difficult to get hold of authentic native speaker activity in French or in German or in Spanish or in other languages. It's much easier to get Urdu. So what do you do? Well, you can set up instant messaging with native speakers of the language elsewhere and overcome barriers of time, overcome barriers of distance, geographical distance and so forth. So I think particularly for communication purposes, it's useful. And here, just very briefly, a summary of what I think are some of the main characteristics and some of the main potential. And we've mentioned a lot of them already. Flexibility, for me, I think it's important. Portability. This or this, I consider to be portable. Ubiquity. You've obviously raised that as a bit of an issue still in Pakistan. By ubiquity, I mean many people have devices like this. With mobile phones, I think even in Pakistan, from what I've seen, everybody seems to eventually have one, certainly in the urban areas. But ubiquity also is linked to the availability of connectivity. I think you mentioned wireless networking or lack of. One of the big, really big things in my view is the ability to connect the local with the global very, very easily. And draw down the resources that other people in completely different places who you will never meet have produced and might.
Our first had this experience last year. We conducted 2 video conferences. One was with a person from Ohio, and we showed its microorganisms and all to our students. While they were sitting there in Karachi and he was in the US. And then there was another one where our students actually interacted with students from Hong Kong. And it really worked very well. And it was fun, it was good learning, it had everything that it needed.
I couldn't agree. And the other thing increasingly is around personal ownership. One of the problems we've had as an education system, technology tends to be expensive and it tends to date fairly quickly. So even if I had a lot of money and I wanted, all Beaconhouse Groups to be as well equipped as they could be in 2 years' time. So one of the ways forward, I think, is trying to find ways in which we can harness those devices, whatever they be, that young people are owning themselves. And in the UK, you know, it could be things like PlayStation consoles and such things, which increasingly have internet access and all sorts of things. So the other day I was just reminded that a device like this, not this particular one, but just a device like this, has got more computing power than NASA had at their disposal when sending the first human being to the moon. So just to get a sense of what's really happening, what sort of power we've got in our hands if we know what to do with it and how to use it. Collaborative and communicative potential. Those of you who went to the session I did early on will know that communication, collaboration, to me are very, very integral aspects of effective learning. And through these devices, I think we can do a lot of that. Interactivity and non-linearity are important features. And that's a challenge in a positive thing as well as a threat in a negative thing. Interactivity is clearly good, but there is a problem with interactivity. If you ever pick up a CD-ROM, and at the back of it, more often than not, you'll find the word interactive on there, you know, in the advertising word to make you buy it. And then you stick it into the computer, and what do they mean by interaction? It's human-computer interaction. And then you wonder, okay, and it's unidirectional, and then you wonder, okay, what's the big deal about this, and is it really helpful to learn? However, if you're talking about interactivity in terms of social, interpersonal interactivity, facilitated by, stimulated by these devices, then we've got all sorts of studies out there that we can point to say that's actually where people learn. People don't learn by sitting in front of a computer and reading what's happening on it. They do a bit as well, but they learn much more by being sat in front of a computer with somebody else and then having to talk about what they actually see and what's going on there. So it's the social dimension that really works. And the non-linearity is obviously a great thing. I can go to LinkedIn, to a website in the States, in the UK, wherever, and draw that down. There's a downside though as well. Tomorrow, when I've got my class with my A-level economics students, this resource might have gone. It might not be there anymore. And that comes back to your point about plan B. So how do you do that? Do you bring it, local, cache it locally on your computers? Are you allowed to, copyright reasons and all that? So it becomes, it's an issue. Distributed knowledge construction. What do I mean by that? One of the things that slightly worried me when one of you over there was speaking, when I said extols the virtues of transmission and knowledge transfer. Clearly that's important, and it's great that you can communicate content and knowledge in that sort of way. But as we know from constructivism, and we've heard quite a bit talked about that today already, the way learning actually works is by the individual augmenting their inner resources and making meaning of things in relation to what they already know and in relation to their social interaction with others.
Giving their own ways.
Yes.
Giving their own ways and then
that's right. So just getting told something ain't gonna do it, and it doesn't really matter whether there's a person telling them or a computer telling them. Although computers do have an advantage actually.
But excuse me.
Yeah.
Like on the basis of previously gained knowledge, which is gained through a human being, then the person, a child can
absolutely.
gain further
And
knowledge.
if all you do is think of it as a transmission technology,
But we
then I
can't
think
make a unicorn sit in front of a computer,
yes,
obviously.
absolutely. What I was saying though, trying to say was that computers have actually much greater face validity than human beings. You put a computer there and you could put a teacher there. And who are the kids going to believe? Yeah. So that's a bit of a challenge too. One of the problems then is, how do we know that what's on the computer or on the device is actually valid, is reliable, is up to date, is accurate? So what do we need? We need a completely new set of what I would call literacy skills. We call it visual literacy, call it technological literacy, I don't know what you want to call it. But so in order, one of the points I'm trying to make in other words is in order for you to be able to use these things effectively, although they might have inherent potential and characteristics, is you have to develop certain skills and certain dispositions in learners, a certain degree of criticality and ability to identify why they can trust this particular website and why they can't trust that particular website. And that's a challenge for us all as teachers, not just language teachers, but all of us in our areas to make that part of our curriculum. You wanted to say something at the back?
I just wanted to say the role of the teacher would be not to transfer the knowledge, but to provide an environment
Yes.
to facilitate and provide an environment where learners are going to learn
Yes.
by themselves.
Yes. Yes.
By interacting with them.
Yeah. And one of these here, for example, what I mean there, this would not. This at the beginning of this year, I published a book on mobile learning, some 400 pages or so, which was written by 3 main authors and then some other authors. And basically, we met occasionally, but the vast amount of collaboration that took place was electronic, was via Skype, was via tools like Dropbox. Have you ever heard of that? Yes. It's basically a folder that you can create on your desktop, and anything you drop in there can instantly, so provided you've got an internet connection on the machine, be viewed in real time by somebody else who you have given access to that particular folder. Yeah? And there's all sorts of tools that allow you to do exciting things. So, had I not had access to these technologies, the book would never have gotten written, because we would never have had the opportunity to spend enough time with each other to get to know each other sufficiently as who we are, what we believe in, how we want to develop this, and so forth. Multimodal knowledge representation we've talked already about. What do I mean by multimodal? Multimodality, basically the creative bringing together in new and exciting ways of different semiotic means of expressing meaning, the verbal, the pictorial, sound, those sorts of things. And, okay, your kids are likely to have skills that you don't have in order to do that, but they do need to develop these skills as a precondition of being able to do it. Yeah?
Let's go into the mainstream of breaking barriers to learning and teaching. I have seen most of us, I won't say anybody else, I am quite reluctant to use the multimedia world. I think I'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a barrier between me and my learners.
What's the barrier?
My fear.
Exactly. It's your, the thing about